clearly this time.
We can hear you clearly. I want us to pick up on the last point that we were discussing with regards to the theme at this year's summit about silencing the guns, and what your impressions are with regards to the progress made by the African leaders towards the realization of this goal.
Yes, as I was saying, I think that we can be quite proud of the achievement that has been made over the years to reduce the number of conflict situations that are taking place on the African continent. In 2004, it was estimated that there were just over 30 conflicts active at that time. Now we've seen far fewer. The agenda that the South African president has put forward for his chairmanship of the African Union has focused particularly on the conflict situations in Libya and in South Sudan. We've also had mention of the Sahel region and the tensions that still exist in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Now, Catherine, one then wonders, who has the guns? I mean, where do they come from? Who supplies them? And shouldn't the African authorities rather deal with the suppliers of these arms?
I think that's a very complicated question, but what it does highlight is the fact that these conflicts are not just taking place among actors from the African continent. The theatre of conflict in Africa involves a wide range of players. If we think about Libya, for example, we know the history of the conflict in Libya that really involved global actors, and still to this day you can point towards Russia and many others being active in the Libyan space. So I think that part of silencing the guns on the continent is also about working with the United Nations, which was highlighted in your video clip there, and a range of other partners to try and resolve these conflict issues.
Now, on ending the conflict in Libya, the African Union, of course, called for greater involvement during all these peace processes. And in the past few months, we've seen, external forces in the form of the world superpowers taking a direct interest in Libya, and to an extent that they even held, a summit in Germany to discuss the fate of Libya, now known as the Berlin Summit, whilst the African Union seemingly, decided to take a backseat. Should that be concerned? I mean, shouldn't be concerned?
Well, I think that the reality was very much the point made by the Minister of Defence in your interview with her, that silencing guns costs money, that stabilising countries that are facing conflict costs a lot of money. And right now, the African Union really has a lot of words. It has a lot of words about finding African solutions to African conflicts. But what we haven't necessarily seen is the backing up of those words with the required actions, with the required resourcing. And this is resourcing for the long term. This can't just be about sending in a few peacekeepers for a few months. This has got to be a long-term commitment. And that's not something that necessarily Africa can afford on its own. So I would not be too worried, I guess, by initiatives such as the Berlin Conference on Libya. I think what is critical is to ensure that when other partners are taking part in conflict resolution activities, that they are doing so in partnership with the African Union and African players.
Yeah, and having said that, Catherine, we've seen Africans complaining bitterly with regards to being marginalized towards contributing to peace in Libya. And we've also seen the United Nations, through its Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, throwing its weight behind the African Union. So what kind of message does this send from the United Nations to the African Union?
I think it sends a good message. I think it was an important message that was made by the United Nations Secretary General and his presence with the African Union at this time, at the summit, very much, again, strengthens that idea of tackling these conflict issues in partnership. So I think that was a positive thing. I think that Libya is a particularly complex situation. and it will be interesting to see how much can be done in 2020 under the chairmanship of South Africa. But there are a number of other issues that South Africa is certainly going to try and focus on during the year ahead, including, of course, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, issues that perhaps are more directly aligned to the South African national agenda, such as green energy, the fourth industrial revolution, and the empowerment of women.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much for your time and for your reflections. That was Catherine Grant Makokera, the director at Tutwa Consulting Group, speaking to us live via Skype. All right, this is The Globe on SABC News.